Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I live in Southeast Asia and just purchased a new house this September. The previous owners were close friends of my family who needed cash urgently and hadn't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. Thanks to this situation, I managed to get the property for a great price, especially considering it's located in the heart of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the beginning of October 2024, and I moved in immediately after. The house needed significant work since the previous owners had abandoned it mid-renovation. The main entrance only had a basic padlock, no proper door lock at all. There wasn't even a gate, leaving the property completely exposed. On my first day, I found someone's motorcycle parked in my garage. I simply moved it to the street the same day I had the gate installed. Later that afternoon, I heard angry banging on my new gate. "Hey, who moved my bike? Open up!" a man shouted from outside. I watched through my window as he continued knocking and yelling for about 15 minutes before finally giving up and taking his motorcycle. "This is still private property, you know," he grumbled as he left. The neighborhood wasn't making a great first impression. Though the motorcycle incident was the only major problem, people still treated the place like an abandoned lot. My gate was constantly blocked by random vehicles until I installed a prominent no parking sign. Last week, I noticed something odd while showering. The water pressure had dropped significantly. Then I heard the distinct sound of my neighbor's water pump running. This neighbor, Mr. Chen, lived in a 3-story house next door. He occupied the ground floor while renting out the upper 2 floors. Mr. Chen had been vocal about his displeasure regarding the house sale. He'd repeatedly complained to my friends, the previous owners. "You can't sell to strangers, this will ruin the neighborhood," he'd told them. They warned me about him, but as a 6-foot-tall guy with 3 large dogs, I wasn't particularly concerned. So far, he hadn't caused any direct problems. In buildings like these, water pumps are essential for getting water up to rooftop tanks, as the municipal supply pressure isn't strong enough to reach higher floors. When I heard his pump running and my pressure dropped, I got suspicious. Sure, it could be coincidental, but I decided to investigate. After his pump stopped, I tested different taps throughout my house. As expected, the pressure returned to normal. This discovery made sense of something that had been puzzling. The water bills for this supposedly empty house had been steadily increasing over the past 3 years. Everyone assumed it was due to leaks, but the amounts seemed excessive for that explanation alone. Now I had a better theory. Mr. Chen had been helping himself to my water supply. "Sarah, you wouldn't believe what this guy's been doing," I told my sister over the phone. "He's been stealing water from my house for years." "Are you sure?" she asked. "That's pretty bold." "Pretty sure. He must have connected to my lines while the house was empty." I spent several days contemplating my next move. Confront him directly, pursue legal action, or just ignore it. Water is incredibly cheap here. My monthly bill, even with 3 dogs to wash, weekly car cleaning, and garden maintenance barely reaches $5, including whatever Mr. Chen was taking. But this wasn't about money. It was about principle. About entitled people thinking they can take advantage of others without consequences. One evening, while walking my dogs, I overheard him bragging to another neighbor. "Why pay for water when no one's using it anyway?" he chuckled. That sealed it for me. My solution was elegantly simple. I would just shut off my main water supply. No breaking and entering, no legal issues, just a perfectly legal action with my own property. On Monday this week, I waited until I heard his pump start, then turned off my water. The tanks in our country use ball valves to monitor water levels and control the pumps. When the water level doesn't rise, the valve stays open, keeping the pump running. Running a pump without water is terrible for the mechanism, but I was counting on that. What I didn't anticipate was how the constant power draw would affect his outdated electrical system. Around 3 a.m. I heard commotion next door. Multiple voices were arguing about the lack of power and water. "This is unacceptable," I heard one tenant shout. "We have rights." "It's not my fault," Mr. Chen responded. "Something must be wrong with the city supply." "That's nonsense," another tenant countered. "Every other house has power and water." Our tenant protection laws are strict, particularly regarding essential services like power and water. Within 2 days, one tenant had moved out. Both tenants filed police complaints, leading to immediate fines without requiring court proceedings. The outcome was severe. Mr. Chen lost both tenants and faced a $500 fine, a significant sum here. He had to refund security deposits and couldn't rent until the utilities were fixed. Yesterday, he came to my gate. "Did you turn off your water supply recently?" he asked hesitantly. "Oh yes," I replied casually. "Had a leaky pipe in my tank, had to shut it off until the plumber could fix it the next day." His face remained composed, but his eyes told a different story. He just muttered, "I see," and walked away. Now he's moving to his daughter's house this Sunday, unable to afford living alone without rental income. Next week, I'm having a plumber remove any unauthorized connections to my water supply. Problem solved, both the water theft and the problematic neighbor, with just one valve turn. The next one is an entitled people's story. I never thought I'd end up in court defending my right to paint my house whatever color I wanted, but here we are. This is the story of how I took on an entitled homeowner association that tried to bully me into following their rules despite having zero authority over my property. It all started when I bought my dream home in 2022. The housing market was crazy, but I managed to find this beautiful 3-bedroom ranch house on a 1-acre lot just outside of Denver. The property had everything I wanted: plenty of space, mature trees, and most importantly, no homeowner association. I dealt with overreaching homeowners associations before and specifically looked for properties that weren't part of one. The house needed some work, but that was part of the appeal. I could fix it up exactly how I wanted without getting permission from anyone. During the purchase process, my real estate agent and the title company confirmed there were no homeowner association encumbrances on the property. The deed was clear. I owned the land and house free and clear of any covenants or restrictions. My first few months there were peaceful. I started making improvements, fixing up the landscaping, repairing some worn siding, and planning bigger projects. That's when the trouble started. One Saturday morning in spring 2023, I was outside painting my front door a bright cobalt blue when a woman marched up my driveway with a stern look on her face. "Excuse me," she said in that uniquely condescending tone that instantly sets your teeth on edge. "That color isn't approved by the Architectural Review Committee. You'll need to submit a request form before making any exterior changes." I looked up from my painting. "I'm sorry, what committee?" "The Peaceful Pines Homeowner Association Architectural Review Committee. That shade of blue isn't on our approved color palette. You'll need to stop work immediately and submit proper documentation." I put down my paintbrush. "Ma'am, I'm not part of any homeowner association. This property is independent." She actually scoffed at me. "Don't be ridiculous. All homes in this area are part of Peaceful Pines. I'm Karen Davidson, the Homeowner Association President. You'll be receiving a violation notice for unauthorized modifications." "Look, Ms. Davidson, I specifically confirmed during purchase that this property isn't part of any homeowner association. I have the deed and title documents to prove it, so while I appreciate you stopping by, you have no authority here." Her face turned an interesting shade of red. "We'll see about that. Expect to hear from our attorney." True to her word, a week later I received a certified letter from Davidson & Associates, attorneys at law. Turns out Karen's husband was a lawyer, demanding that I cease all unauthorized exterior modifications and pay a $500 fine for violating homeowner association bylaws. I did what any reasonable person would do. I ignored it and continued with my projects. Over the next month, I got increasingly threatening letters, each with higher fine amounts. They even placed a lien on my property, which really got my attention since that could affect my ability to refinance or sell in the future. I hired a real estate attorney, Maria Gonzalez, who specialized in homeowner association disputes. When I showed her my documentation and explained the situation, she actually smiled. "This is what we call a slam dunk case," she said. "Your property was never part of their homeowner association. It was developed before Peaceful Pines was established, and the previous owners never joined. They're trying to retroactively force you in, which isn't legal. We filed a lawsuit to remove the illegal lien and get a declaratory judgment confirming my property's independent status." That's when things got really interesting. The homeowner association's response was fascinating. They claimed that because my property was surrounded by homeowner association properties, I was automatically subject to their authority. They produced a map showing how my lot was an island in their community and argued it would damage neighborhood cohesion to allow one property to operate outside their rules. The court date arrived and I was nervous but confident. Karen Davidson showed up with her husband as counsel, along with several other homeowner association board members. They all wore matching Peaceful Pines Pride polo shirts, which I found amusingly cultish. My attorney started by presenting the property's chain of title. showing it was developed in 1975, while Peaceful Pines wasn't established until 1988. She also presented documentation proving the previous owners had repeatedly declined to join the homeowner association. Then came the fun part. Karen took the stand. Her testimony was a masterclass in entitled thinking. Your Honor, allowing this property to remain outside our authority undermines everything we've built. Just last month, Mr. Johnson installed an unapproved mailbox design. Next, he'll probably put up a fence that doesn't match our standards. Where does it end? Property values will plummet. My attorney's cross-examination was beautiful. Ms. Davidson, can you show me any document where my client agreed to join your homeowner association? Well, no, but can you show me any document where the previous owners agreed to join? No, but they should have. Can you point to any legal authority that allows you to force a property owner to join a homeowner association against their will? The community's interest, yes or no, Ms. Davidson? No. The judge, an older gentleman who'd clearly seen his share of homeowner association overreach, didn't take long to rule. His decision was memorable. This court finds no legal basis for Peaceful Pines Homeowner Association's claim of authority over the plaintiff's property. The lien is ordered removed immediately, and the homeowner association is permanently enjoined from attempting to enforce their rules on this property. Furthermore, the court finds this action was frivolous and undertaken in bad faith. The homeowner association will pay the plaintiff's legal fees. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Her husband started to object, but the judge cut him off. Mr. Davidson, I suggest you advise your client, both his counsel and spouse, that further harassment of this property owner will result in sanctions. This court takes a dim view of attempts to bully property owners into submission through improper legal action. You'd think that would be the end of it, but homeowner associations don't give up easily. Over the next few months, they tried several tactics. They sent letters to all my neighbors claiming I was destroying property values and encouraging them to pressure me to conform. They tried to claim my trees were encroaching on homeowner association common areas and needed to be removed. They even attempted to have the city cite me for code violations, all of which were unfounded. Each time, my attorney sent a stern cease and desist letter, citing the court order. Finally, after Karen tried to block my driveway with her car during a landscaping delivery, we went back to court for a harassment order. This time, the judge was even less amused. Ms. Davidson, let me be absolutely clear. Your organization has no authority over this property. None. Zero. If you continue this pattern of harassment, this court will hold you personally liable for damages. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, she mumbled. Furthermore, you are ordered to notify all homeowner association members in writing that this property is not subject to homeowner association rules and must not be harassed about compliance. Any violation of this order will result in a $1,000 per day fine, payable by you personally, not the homeowner association. That finally got through to her. The next week, every house in Peaceful Pines received a carefully worded letter explaining that my property was exempt from homeowner association rules and members were prohibited from attempting to enforce compliance. The aftermath was interesting. Several of my neighbors quietly admitted they envied my freedom from homeowner association control. One even brought over cookies and apologized for initially siding with Karen. Turned out the homeowner association had been terrorizing everyone with petty rules and violations. I've since finished my home improvements, including painting my house a gorgeous sage green, not on their approved palette, installing a white picket fence, they only allow brown vinyl, putting up wind chimes and garden decorations, parking my restored classic car in the driveway, they have rules against visible project vehicles. Every change fully complied with actual city codes while gloriously violating homeowner association rules. The best part? My property value has increased more than the homeowner association homes around me, probably because buyers love finding a rare non-homeowner association property in a desirable area. Karen still lives 3 doors down. Sometimes I catch her glaring at my house while walking her perfectly homeowner association compliant poodle, but she doesn't dare say a word. I make a point of cheerfully waving every time. The whole experience taught me several valuable lessons. Always verify property status during purchase. Get everything in writing and keep good records. Stand your ground when you know you're right. Don't let bullies intimidate you, even if they come wearing lawyer suits and carrying official-looking documents. Invest in good legal representation early. My attorney's fees were ultimately paid by the homeowner association, but even if they weren't, it would have been worth every penny to protect my property rights. Document everything. Every interaction, every letter, every attempt at interference. It all helps build your case if you need to go to court. Know your actual local laws and codes. Homeowner associations often try to enforce stricter rules than cities require, but if you're not in their jurisdiction, only the real regulations matter. The story has become something of a legend in local real estate circles. My attorney has even used it as a case study for other clients dealing with homeowner association overreach. She tells me that whenever she gets a new homeowner association case, she references the Blue Door Rebellion, her nickname for my situation, as an example of how to successfully fight back against unauthorized homeowner association control. Last month I hosted a neighborhood barbecue, open to all, homeowner association members or not. Most of my neighbors came, though Karen and her crew were conspicuously absent. As we enjoyed good food and conversation, several people asked about the story behind my bright blue front door. I just smiled and said it was my Declaration of Independence. The homeowner association still holds their monthly meetings, making rules about everything from holiday decoration timing to acceptable mailbox post heights. Sometimes I sit on my front porch, sipping lemonade and watching them file into Karen's house with their binders and laptops. My wind chimes tinkle in the breeze, my non-regulation garden gnomes stand guard, and my blue door stays defiantly, gloriously blue. I've since joined a local property rights advocacy group and occasionally speak at meetings about fighting homeowner association overreach. My advice is always the same. Know your rights, document everything, and don't back down when you're in the right. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a property outside homeowner association control, but those who do should protect that freedom. The final irony: 2 other properties in the neighborhood recently discovered they too were never properly incorporated into the homeowner association. They're now fighting their own battles for independence using my case as precedent. Karen must be having fits. As for me, I'm planning my next project, a lovely vegetable garden in the front yard complete with a hand-painted sign reading "Freedom Grows Here." It may not be homeowner association approved, but that's entirely the point. The end. The next one is a petty revenge story. My 40M, almost 4-year-old daughter loves grocery shopping with me, especially if we get one of those race car grocery carts. If it's a slow time at the store, I take her to the deli, where there is a wide open space in the corner, and spin a circle with the cart. She loves it. It usually gathers smiles in the rare case someone is nearby. Just a dad having fun with his daughter, right? Just yesterday, after doing a single spin, we went on our way when an older lady, I'd say early 70s, came towards us, shaking her head and glaring at us. I gave her a perplexed look in response to her scowl, and she muttered something about having absolutely no respect for public spaces. I responded, "Sorry, ma'am, I was just having fun with my child. Sorry to have offended you. Have a nice day." I thought that was that and was happy to move on, but she continued, "Shame on you for teaching your child such poor manners. I taught my children how to behave in public." Me: "Clearly that's a lesson you didn't bother to learn yourself. I wonder how well they turned out." Muttered something about them being perfect. My almost 4-year-old is extremely perceptive and sensitive, and asked if she had done something wrong. I then explained as loud as I could. Me: "Absolutely not, honey. That's just a very grumpy old bully." She angrily responded, "I am not grumpy. I just want to be left alone." Me, with my stern face: "No? Well, you certainly are a bully then, and if you want to be left alone, I strongly suggest you start minding your own ducking business. You taught your children to behave in stores? I'm teaching mine to stand up to bullies like you. Thank you for this perfect teaching moment." She finally caught the hint to shut her trap and moved along, still muttering and shaking her head. Petty revenge commences. Twice more we encountered her in the other aisles, and I made sure to overdo the race car theme, but would abruptly stop when we got near her, saying loudly to my daughter, "Careful now, honey, we don't want to anger the fun police." And my daughter played along perfectly. As fate would have it, we were approaching the checkout at nearly the same time. We got there first, but I magnanimously allowed her in front of us to be first in line at the solitary man checkout, knowing she would complain. And she did not disappoint. She immediately started to explain to the till person that she was harassed by me and my daughter this whole time and how we were disrupting the whole store. The till lady cautiously looked over at me and I just gave a totally confused shrug. I'm still in my formal work clothes, suit and tie, and my daughter is wearing her adorable poofy fairy skirt, picture perfect innocence. Having obviously seen me let the lady in front of us in line, the till person gave me an apologetic smile and just nodded and smiled, humoring Karen. She must have tried complaining further at customer services because we were now leaving at the same time, despite our full grocery cart, a child insisting on helping with the bagging. Once outside, I made sure to race that cart past her as loud and as obnoxiously as I could, and my daughter squealed in delight. I didn't even bother looking back at that crusty old idiot. She ruined my shopping outing. I hope I ruined her entire day. I do feel bad for people that are this desperately miserable, but I also have zero patience for them taking it out on other people, just trying to enjoy a sliver of joy in their day. I think if enough of us consistently confront people like this, they might just learn to keep their mouths shut and their poor attitudes to themselves. Mandatory edit, formatting, gratitude, and trolls. No content edits. Thanks for all the fatherhood props, made my day. And thanks for all the new grocery store shenanigans tips. Can't wait to bring joy to hundreds of people while pissing off one. My mind is blown about the people defending this lady, labeling me the bully, and shaming my parenthood. They're just trolls, right? Please say they're trolls. Shame to say it worked, though. I responded to them. I failed. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I work at a mid-sized company where most of us have small desks in an open-plan office. Our workspace was never fancy, but it was our own. Many of us had personalized our desks over time with small things that made us feel comfortable, like family photos, little potted plants, motivational quotes, even those cheesy stress balls from random company events. Enter our new manager, Sheila. Fresh from a more formal corporate environment, she came in with big ideas about professionalism and efficiency. Her first big change? An immediate no personal items policy. Sheila sent out an email announcing that desks must remain professional and distraction-free, and warned that any personal items found after a certain date would be removed by her. People were frustrated, but we complied. We packed up our things, took home our photos, plants, and every little touch that made our desks feel like ours. But Sheila wasn't satisfied. She started walking around the office, critiquing anything she deemed unprofessional, including practical items like sticky notes or even labeled drawers. She wanted a uniform look, free from clutter. At this point, we were fed up. We decided to take impersonal to a whole new level. We spent the next few days systematically removing anything that added personality or function to the space. First, we took down the labels on drawers and cabinets that marked where supplies were kept. After all, they could be considered personalized. Then, we stripped the whiteboards bare, removing all schedules, task lists, and helpful reminders. My coworker Sam, the office organizer, removed all the color-coded tabs and replaced everything with blank, unlabeled folders. Our workstations became soulless, but we didn't stop there. We noticed that even the company-provided items, like the ergonomic mouse pads and wrist rests, weren't uniform, so we tucked them away in drawers. Some of us even swapped out our ergonomic chairs with the plain guest chairs, as the ergonomic ones seemed a bit too individualized. Soon, our workspace looked like a cross between a sterile hospital room and a call center with zero personality. It was, in Sheila's words, totally professional. Sheila was pleased at first, but then the consequences of our impersonal compliance started to show. Without labels or visible reminders, no one knew where anything was stored, leading to endless back and forth and wasted time hunting for supplies. Simple tasks took twice as long, with people digging through unlabeled files or searching for the right folder in the sea of plain, identical folders. Clients visiting the office remarked that the space felt cold and uninviting, noting that they missed the usual welcoming touch. Morale in the office dropped and everyone was noticeably disengaged. After a particularly rough day where Sheila herself got frustrated searching for a stapler, she called an emergency meeting. She admitted that maybe we'd gone a bit too far and that we could reintroduce a few labeled drawers and some plants. One by one, employees brought back their family photos, potted plants, and other small touches that made the office feel alive again. By the end of the day, our workspace was back to normal with a clear message sent. Sometimes a little personality and comfort go a long way. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.